They called each other enemies, until one Christmas Eve turned two strangers into family the night it all broke. The Christmas lights were still blinking when Ryan Calloway's whole life fell apart. Red, green, cheerful, relentless, completely indifferent to the fact that the man sitting across from his boss in conference room B had just been handed a termination letter on Christmas Eve. The same Christmas Eve that his 5-year-old son Noah was home right now, tearing off the last link of a paper chain he'd been building since September. Ryan stared at the envelope on the table. His jaw was tight. His blue-gray eyes, sharp, steady, the kind that didn't miss anything, were fixed on two words that refused to rearrange themselves no matter how long he stared: effective immediately. Gerald Harrington leaned back in his chair with the casual ease of a man who had never once gone to bed hungry. "It's nothing personal, Calloway. The company is restructuring." Ryan looked up slowly. "It's Christmas Eve," he said. Quiet, controlled, dangerous in the way that only truly quiet things are dangerous. "The board made the decision. Your severance package is—" "I have a son." Ryan's voice broke on that word, just barely, just enough. "He's 5. He's been counting down to this Christmas for 3 months. He made a paper chain. Tonight he gets to tear off the last link." He stood up, picked up the envelope, looked at Gerald Harrington one final time with those steady eyes. "Merry Christmas, Gerald." He walked out, past the office party already starting in the break room, past 6 years of his life packed in a cardboard box outside his office door, down 14 floors in an elevator, alone, while Christmas music played from a tiny speaker in the ceiling. When the lobby doors opened and Chicago December hit him like a wall, Ryan stood on the steps with his box and looked up at the dark, snow-heavy sky. Then he picked up the box and walked to his car, because Noah was home, and Noah needed him. And that one 5-year-old reason, was the only thing keeping Ryan Calloway upright right now. What he was protecting the kitchen table at Maplewood Apartments past midnight. Ryan sat with his face in his hands and stared at the drawing Noah had brought home from school. 3 stick figures, a lopsided Christmas tree, and across the top in the careful, imperfect handwriting of a 5-year-old who had practiced every letter, "Merry Christmas, Dad, I love you." He'd held it together all the way home. Through the drive, through tucking Noah in, through the small, sleepy voice that had asked, "Dad, are you okay?" And the practiced smile that had answered, "Of course, buddy, everything's great." But now, alone, with $412 in his bank account and a nearly empty refrigerator and his son's drawing in front of him, Ryan Calloway let the wall come down. Just for a moment, just in the dark, just enough to breathe through it. Then he lifted his head, wiped his face, opened his laptop. Figure it out. You always figure it out. He typed his first job search with steady hands. 3 years ago he had buried his wife, come home to a 2-year-old who didn't fully understand what gone meant, and figured it out. He had done the impossible thing before, he could do it again. But the cursor blinked at him in the dark kitchen, and somewhere beneath the determination, a quiet voice said what he didn't want to hear: this time might be different. The woman who recommended it 3 floors above that Christmas party, in the corner office facing the lake, Alexandra Mercer, was still working. This was not unusual. At 31, she was the youngest senior VP in Harrington and Cole's history. Northwestern summa cum laude. Bar exam first attempt. 6 years of building the company's legal and risk division into something responsible for 40% of annual revenue. She didn't do office parties. She didn't do small talk. She did results. She was standing at her window now, arms crossed, looking at the Chicago skyline through falling snow. And she was thinking about Ryan Calloway. Because the restructuring he'd just been fired for? She had recommended it. She had run the numbers. She had told the board that the analytics division was underperforming, that 3 positions were redundant, that restructuring was the fiscally responsible move. She had not known it would happen on Christmas Eve. She had not known, until she saw him in the lobby with that cardboard box and that carefully controlled expression, the held-together face of a man fighting not to shatter, that he had a child. Alexandra turned back to her desk. The numbers don't lie, she told herself. He should have performed better. She sat down, opened her laptop, got back to work, but his face stayed with her, stubborn, uninvited, like a splinter she couldn't reach. Black ice, 11:47 p.m. A stretch of unsalted road on the east side of the city. Ryan's 10-year-old Chevy hit the black ice, spun slowly and helplessly, and came to rest with its front tire buried in a snowbank on the shoulder. He sat for a moment with both hands on the wheel, said a word he wouldn't have said with Noah in the car, got out, assessed, pushed, failed. Stood in the falling snow in his gray button-up shirt. He'd left his coat at the office, brilliant, and checked his phone, 0 bars. He'd been standing there 4 minutes, snow collecting on his shoulders, when headlights appeared around the bend. The car slowed, stopped. The window came down. Ryan looked at the driver looked at Ryan. Alexandra Mercer. The snow fell between them like the universe waiting to see what they'd do next. "Calloway," she said. "Mercer," he said. She looked at his snow-covered shoulders, at his car in the bank, at the pharmacy bag in his hand, Noah's asthma medication, the reason he'd been out this late in the first place. Something moved across her face, fast, gone before he could name it. She unlocked the doors. "Get in," she said, "before you freeze. The ride home, warm leather seats, the smell of expensive coffee, Christmas music very low on the radio." They drove in silence, the specific kind that exists between two people with everything to say and the shared decision to say none of it. Until Ryan said quietly without looking at her, "Were you part of it?" Her hands tightened on the wheel. "I analyzed the division's metrics, I presented findings, the final decision was Harrington's. But you recommended it." Silence, which was its own answer. Ryan nodded, looked out at the dark city. "I have a 5-year-old son," he said, not angry, just facts. "His name is Noah. His mother died 3 years ago. I'm all he has." A pause. He practiced his Christmas list for 2 weeks before he wrote it down because he wanted to spell everything right. He spelled bicycle wrong. He's been practicing that one too. The heater hummed. The city moved past. When Alexandra spoke, her voice was careful, controlled. But something underneath had shifted, fractionally, quietly, like a door that has been locked so long the lock is starting to rust. "Where do you live?" "Maplewood, but you don't have to." "Maplewood it is." What she couldn't walk away from, she pulled up to his building. He reached for the door, stopped, turned back to look at her, and she was already looking at him. The armor was down, just for that moment, just two people on either side of something that had happened between them and couldn't be taken back. "Thank you," he said, "for the ride." "It was on my way," she said. They both knew it wasn't. He got out, she got out too. He turned around, surprised. Alexandra was standing in the snow, looking up at his building, holding grocery bags from a 24-hour store, bags that Ryan was almost certain had not been in her car earlier that evening. "I bought too much," she said, not quite meeting his eyes. "I always buy too much." Ryan looked at this woman, at the bags, at the snow melting in her dark hair, at the careful architecture of a lie that was also somehow underneath it the most honest thing she'd said all night. He held the building door open. "3rd floor," he said. "Elevator's broken." The apartment. She stood in his kitchen and unpacked the bags in silence while Ryan watched. Ham, potatoes, eggnog, a pie, Christmas crackers, and at the very bottom of the last bag, a small wrapped box with a picture of a bicycle on the tag. He stared at it, looked at her. "How did you know?" he asked, barely above a whisper. She kept organizing the refrigerator back to him. "It was just a guess, a 5-year-old boy. Christmas." He stood very still in his small kitchen, the kitchen with Noah's drawings covering the refrigerator, with the lopsided real Christmas tree shedding needles in the corner, with the drawing on the table that said "I love you," and felt something crack open in his chest that had been sealed shut for a long, careful time. They sat at the kitchen table later with coffee between them and the snow against the window, and he told her about Noah, about Sarah, about the ordinary Tuesday in February that had broken his world in two, about the first Christmas after, when a 2-year-old who didn't understand gone had woken up and toddled into the living room and announced with complete certainty, "Santa came, Daddy," and Ryan had understood in that moment that he wasn't allowed to fall apart all the way. When he stopped talking, Alexandra was looking at her coffee cup, jaw tight in the way he recognized, the way she looked when she was feeling something she hadn't prepared for. "I'm sorry," she said. "About Sarah, and about tonight." She looked up. "I didn't know." "I know you didn't," he said. "It was still wrong, but I know." And in the quiet of that small kitchen on Christmas Eve, something between them shifted permanently. like two tectonic plates that had been grinding against each other for years, finally settling into something new. Christmas morning, he woke up on the couch to the smell of pancakes. Alexandra was at his kitchen counter in the world's greatest dad apron she'd found in the cabinet, applying her full professional focus to a box of pancake mix with the expression of someone who did not regularly make pancakes but was absolutely going to win at it. "You stayed," he said. "The snow was too heavy," she said, not turning around. "I slept in the chair." Then Noah appeared in the hallway. Rocket pajamas, hair at full chaos, clutching his stuffed elephant, and looked at his dad, then at the woman making pancakes. His eyes went wide. He looked at Ryan and whispered, "Is that Santa's helper?" Alexandra turned around, and Ryan watched something extraordinary happen to her face. All of it, every layer of armor and composure, simply fell away, and she smiled at his son with an expression so open and unguarded that Ryan felt his breath physically catch. "I'm Alex," she said to Noah. "I'm your dad's friend. I made pancakes, is that okay?" Noah considered this with the gravity of a 5-year-old making an important decision. "Did you bring presents?" "Noah," Ryan started. "Maybe," Alexandra said. Noah nodded. "Then it's okay. The bicycle note. I owe you one bicycle. Your dad helped me pick it out." Made Noah look at her with his mother's eyes, direct and certain, and ask, "You're gonna come back to give me the real one?" Alexandra looked at the boy, looked at Ryan over his head. Then she looked back at Noah and said quietly and completely, "Yes, if that's okay." Noah walked across the room and hugged her around the knees, and Ryan watched Alexandra Mercer, the most composed, untouchable person he had ever known, look down at his son's small arms wrapped around her and stay very still, like someone receiving something they hadn't known they'd been waiting for. She went back, and 3 days after Christmas, Alexandra walked into Gerald Harrington's office and closed the door. She had spent 48 hours over the holiday rerunning every number she had originally given the board. Not just cost reduction, long-term revenue impact, client retention, institutional knowledge. What it would actually cost to replace Ryan Calloway versus what they thought they were saving. The numbers told a different story, because she had finally looked at them differently. Before she presented them, she said something that Harrington's assistant overheard and repeated, and that people at the company would discuss for years. "I gave you data without context, and you made a decision without conscience. Between us, we fired a single father on Christmas Eve. I won't let that stand." Gerald Harrington, who was not entirely without a soul, looked at his senior VP for a long moment. Then he told her to send the revised report to the board. The call Ryan was mid-application to a competing firm when his phone rang. The HR director, the board review, the rescinded termination, the formal apology. He sat at his kitchen table, phone to his ear, and looked at Noah's drawing still on the table where it had been since Christmas Eve. "Merry Christmas, Dad, I love you. Mr. Calloway, will you be accepting reinstatement?" He thought of a woman in a world's greatest dad apron, of dark eyes going soft and unguarded for the first time, of a note that said, "I owe you one bicycle," in precise, careful handwriting. "Yes," he said. "I'll accept." He hung up, called Alexandra immediately. She answered on the second ring. "Calloway, you went back in." He went to the numbers again, silent, a pause. "The numbers told me what I should have seen the first time." Silence, the good kind. "Can I take you to dinner?" he said. A longer pause. Ryan wasn't nervous. He'd watched Alexandra Mercer calculate exits for 6 years. He knew what it looked like when she decided to stay. "Noah too?" she asked. He smiled. The first real smile in weeks, the kind that starts in the chest and can't be stopped. "Noah too," he said. Epilogue. 1 year later, Christmas Eve. The apartment on Maplewood, louder than before. Smelling like pine and something baking. Alexandra had been teaching herself to cook with the same ferocity she applied to everything. And she was genuinely getting good, though she would never say so. The tree was bigger this year, still lopsided, still real. Decorated with 2 years of Noah's ornaments plus a few of Alexandra's. Hung at precise intervals until Noah rearranged them all with enormous enthusiasm, and she pretended not to notice. Noah was asleep, 10:15 mid-sentence, out cold, still holding Gerald the elephant. Ryan and Alexandra sat on the couch. Tree lights reflected in the window. City quiet under fresh snow. "Same time last year," he said. I know. She was leaning against his shoulder. A thing that had happened gradually over months until it was simply where she was. Different outcome, he said. She looked up at him. Was it? He waited. Maybe, she said quietly. The outcome was always the same. Maybe we were always going to end up here. She paused. I don't believe in fate, obviously. Obviously, he said, but if I did, she turned back to the tree. I'd say that Christmas Eve last year happened exactly the way it was supposed to. Ryan looked at this woman. His adversary, his rescuer, his family, in that order, in 12 months, and put his arm around her. Outside, snow kept falling. Inside, the Christmas lights blinked, red, green, red, green. This time they weren't indifferent. This time they felt exactly like a beginning. The end.